Welcome to alternative media. I set up this YouTube channel to do the news, so let's first of all get the legal stuff out of the way. Anything I say in this video should be considered my own opinion, and anything I infer should be alleged or allegedly, okay? So anything I say should be taken with a pinch of salt. So first of all, let's address the elephant in the room, Tommy Robinson, who is not a racist, who's someone who has tried to highlight the R gangs, and he's been vilified for doing so, even though later on we found out that everything he was saying was pretty much true. Anyway, a lot of people like to bring up the fact he's been imprisoned, and the first thing that he was really got into trouble with was he basically loaned some money to some relatives, and that was considered mortgage fraud because they overinflated their income. Then he was outside a court, asked some people about their sentencing, and then was quickly arrested, filming outside on a public footpath, I believe. And the appeal courts judged the fact he was thrown in prison unjust, and he was released. So forget about that. Even though Nigel Farage said, you know, keeps highlighting the fact that he keeps getting arrested and he's been to prison. He even mentioned that he was a wife beater, which he wasn't, because his wife said that's not true. So listen, Nigel, get your facts right before you start saying things, and stop throwing Tommy under the bus. But the reason for this video is Paul Thorpe, a popular YouTuber with 284,000 subscribers, has decided to walk back from the right, as well as to a lesser degree a friend of his called Richard Inman, who regularly features on his live streams, and his friend Danny from Spain. I believe Andy the Gabby Cabby, a YouTuber, said that his name was Danny Salmon. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I'll just go with that. Apparently Danny was detained by airport police counter-terrorism squad, and it was something about there was a crease in his passport, so they took him aside and then obviously asked him for his mobile phones and his PIN numbers. If he didn't, you'd be arrested. Basically that's something that Tommy wouldn't do, and that's why he obviously he's got a harsher sentence than he would have. But like all journalists don't want to give their sources out, especially to, if you think the police are corrupt or the government is corrupt, you don't want to volunteer sensitive information to them that could harm other people. Anyway, you know, Danny was shook up. Apparently he wasn't well. He came to see his daughter for her birthday. He went in hospital briefly apparently, and it basically made him rethink about doing politics at all. And Paul Thorpe thought, that's my friend, I've got him into trouble here, I'm rethinking whether I want to do politics at all. You see, Paul Thorpe was a watch YouTuber with about 22,000 subscribers. He's ballooned since he went political. He's had various famous people on, like Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib on his channel, as well as the UKIP guy that runs it. And you know, he's become quite popular and quite famous. And obviously he gets lots of super chats as well, which is money that is sent to him to help him in his aspirations, I suppose, in terms of supporting the movement. The movement, obviously they created something called the Pledge, which is basically a document that says we believe in fairness and justice and that sort of thing. And it's not something that anyone would not want to sign. Even Ben Habib signed it because he thought, yeah, it's a nice idea. The pledge is just like a document that says, you know, we stand for goodness, and you know, obviously the rule of law, justice, being treated fairly. Who could argue with that, you know? Anyway, I think where people are getting a bit angry at Paul Thorpe is he's basically chucked all his supporters and fans under the bus, and he's saying, I'm not going to do politics anymore. Now, 8 months ago, he suspended all his political videos. Now, I think that would hurt him potentially financially, because it's his politics on the right that makes him popular, and he's running scared basically. Just like now, there is obviously a caveat with this. With when I mentioned Richard Inman, who was one of his guests. Richard Inman is in Northern Ireland has said, I'm going to continue the marches, but only in Northern Ireland. I'm not going to go to the UK. So basically, what we're saying is there's going to be no more marches in the UK with 100,000 people attending, unless Tommy Robinson, when he comes out, starts leading them himself. But I think Katie Hopkins recently said on Dan Wharton's YouTube channel, where if Nigel Farage is not careful, right, Tommy Robinson, if he comes out and sets up his own party, he will crush Nigel Farage, literally, and Nigel will lose a lot of support. And I just wish Nigel, come on Nigel, stop being this person that hates Tommy. I know in a recent clip where someone in America for Urban Scoop interviewed Nigel, and he said, I don't hate Tommy, but what's happening to Tommy ain't fair. That's the only time he's actually said something nice about Tommy. But yeah, basically the likes of Paul Thorpe and obviously Danny, I think they're scared of the government. Obviously the government establishment is becoming a bit like a Nazi regime really, where people who make comments on social media that are deemed as being really bad are being locked up, and even one person committed suicide over it, and that was a shame. And it's a shame that Nigel hasn't mentioned that on TV, on GMTV news. So basically Paul Thorpe is refraining from doing politics anymore. I think that's a bad idea, mate, because I think people want to support you, but I think at the moment the mood is you're turning your backs on those people. Now let's talk about super chats. Now the thing is, Paul Thorpe said, I've paid for things with my own money, such as when he was offering to spend $3,000 of his own money for the coaches to bring people to the marches. Well, let's be honest. Let's be really honest here. The super chats that people were giving you were paying for that. It didn't come out of your own pocket. The $2,000 that you gave to Tommy probably came from the super chats, right? And according to I think Social Blade, Paul Thorpe has estimated to have earned about $100,000 from his YouTube channel earnings. So, you know, because he's ballooned and he's earning all this money, you know, obviously, I wouldn't say he's paid for these things himself. It's money that is earned from the YouTube and money that's been given to him through the super chats. I remember one particular guy gave Paul Thorpe £300 in 3 separate super chats, and I think everyone at the time was gobsmacked that guy did that, you know. So let's talk about other YouTubers that have commented on these videos. But before I do that, Paul Thorpe recently released a rant video about some comments he'd received, and I think he was really angry with people saying, if you've not walked in our shoes and you don't put your head above the parapet, you know, you have no right to say these things. Well, like you've always said that you believe in freedom of speech and democracy and having the ability to say what you think rather than be policed by the thought police. So if you've got the right to say something, anyone else has got the right to criticise you. That's what democracy is all about. Now, if you want the state to become a police state where Labour has full control and Starmer can do what the hell he likes to anyone he don't like and puts them in prison, that's, you know, all goodwill to you, mate, if that's what you want. But I don't think that's what you want. I think that's why the movement was so important. Now we talk about the pledge. The pledge was about justice, freedoms, what you would expect in America. Why do you think J.D. Vance, obviously the Deputy President in America, has been so critical of the UK? Because they're concerned about freedom of speech in this country. Don't forget, we had the Magna Carta. We're supposed to be the leader of freedoms in the world. And at the moment, all the countries in the world are looking at us and thinking, what the hell is going off with the UK? The birthplace of democracy and freedom of speech and the ability to criticise. But we can't criticise a particular group now without fear of being sent to prison. So, like I said, Paul Thorpe and Danny want to leave politics altogether because they're scared of the police and what the government might do to them. Richard Inman has stated that he's drawing back from the UK, so he will do his marches only in Northern Ireland. All credit to Richard. At least you're still doing something, at least, you know. So, as I mentioned, let's talk about the other YouTubers that are commented on this situation. So the ex-British Army Paz 49 has discussed it, and I think he feels that they're just pulling back, and all credit to them if they want to do that. You know, it's their lives, they have the right to do whatever they want to do. But I still think he's probably a bit disappointed, if I'm honest. Obviously, Andy the Gabby Cabby has talked about it as well. Go to those YouTube channels and have a look at what they have to say. And then, now there was a breakdown of what was said in the interview between Paul Thorpe and Danny from Spain by Danny Unfiltered. And he commented and breaked it down section by section. And I think he was a bit disappointed as well as what was being said. I will leave a link in the description box if you want to watch the breakdown. Highly recommend you do so. So, yeah, basically, Paul Thorpe, as I said, if you're not prepared to put your head above the parapet, right, you don't have the right to say anything. But let me just give you a quote that should stick with you in your mind. All it takes for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing. Now, you may remember Elon Musk said something on X, formerly known as Twitter, regarding something's coming to the UK. I'll just abbreviate it. CW, 2 words, is inevitable. That was taken from CNN, a left-wing source that I looked up, but I suspect it's on X still, if you go onto Elon Musk's account. It's troubling times we're living in. We're living in a police state, I believe, and I don't know how much different we are between a communist or a Nazi state. Obviously, people haven't been killed, but who's to say that might not happen in the future? You know, the future does not look good for the UK. Other countries are looking at us and thinking, what the hell is going on with the birthplace of democracy? If a lot of people criticise what Russia is doing to Ukraine. Now, since I know quite a little bit about that subject matter, you know, you could argue and say, well, Russia's been lied to so many times that they decided, F it, we're going to invade and make sure that there's no, you know, Western missiles placed on Ukraine soil aimed at Moscow, because they are being systematically lied multiple times by the West. We need a First and Second Amendments in this country, just like America have got. We need freedom of speech entrenched in law, so that you have the right to say what you feel, providing it doesn't cause harm or serious distress. Not you liking something isn't distress. And if you don't like something, don't watch it. Simple as that. Don't listen to it. If you don't like something, what gives you the right to report that to the police if you don't like it? You know, unless it incites violence, right? Which no one advocates for. There should be no reason to be reporting people for this and that and trying to get them into trouble. So this is the reason I wanted to do a video. I'll go through the things that have been said. Listen, Paul Thorpe, you've got fans. You've got people that support you. Running away because the establishment are going after you. It's just, if someone like you are going to do that, what hope has the rest of us got? And then just think about Tommy. Tommy's put his head right up above the parapet, and you're running away. Now I can appreciate that you might have families and you might be concerned about your jobs and your employment, and you know, don't want to lose your income. Fair enough, I can understand that. But just keep doing what you're doing. People want you to succeed and do well. Don't turn your backs on your supporters. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.